are you listening to? Straight Talk with Kim and Carolyn.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Straight Talk with Kim and Carolyn. We have some really interesting discussions tonight. We have Representative Brady Brammer, who will be joining us. He will be talking about a resolution that he has dealing with the human rights abuses taking place in China. And then we will be having a discussion with Representative Phil Lyman. And there are a couple things we're going to talk to him about. He is looking at possibly a change to the Utah Constitution and running a resolution on that, as well as dealing with some public meetings.
Yeah, you can't keep parents out of meetings that they're entitled to be.
Yeah, although, you can if you're an elected official. I think that's how that works. Yeah. Anyway, so he'll be looking at maybe some penalties for when those kinds of things take place. But we will start off with Representative Brady Brammer.
Okay, so you have a resolution that deals with some human rights abuses with China. So can I just have you start with maybe, you may want to have a distinction between the people of China and the government of China. I think that's always important to distinguish. But then why are you doing this? What was the impetus? Why you?
Yeah. Well, the resolution really does draw a line between the people of China and the PRC, which is the People's Republic of China, or their government, which is run by their communist government. And the reason why I ran it is in the middle of COVID, there were some resolutions that were proposed to the legislature that were saying, we stand with the People's Republic of China related to COVID issues. And it kind of got me a little upset. And so and I'd already been pretty frustrated about, the Uyghur situation, about the Hong Kong situation. I had traveled to China in 2006. It was an incredible experience in seeing what government shouldn't be. When you go to Tiananmen Square, it's interesting that they don't have, they have military staging, but they're not carrying weapons like a normal military stage would do to portray strength to the world. They carry riot gear, which means that they're focused inwardly to control their people. That was the very message that you got. And so, I decided to run this because, number one, if you're not familiar with the Uyghur situation, it is between 1 and 3 million people that are being detained in re-education camps merely for the fact that they have a different religion. They're a Muslim ethnic community. And that's the largest concentration camp in the world, in the history of the world. Huh. And, they're engaged in forced sterilization of the women. They separate the children. They try to avoid having the children being taught by their parents. It's a really, really horrible situation. And they just have mass electronic surveillance on that community to a scale that's never been seen before.
Well, additionally, and we're even hearing horrible stories about organ harvesting. I didn't see that this resolution addressed that, but there is a lot of tales of organ harvesting, forced organ harvesting,
right.
live human organ harvesting.
Yeah, and that's a little harder to track and verify, but I do believe that it's happening. I just wasn't sure that I had the evidentiary basis for it. Mm-hmm. And and then the second half of it is related to Hong Kong and the protests that they've been, they really went back on their agreements from 1997 when Hong Kong switched from England back to China, and they haven't been running their one country, two systems model. They've started to extradite people from Hong Kong into the Chinese system, and that's been really destructive to the people's trust and it's just been pretty brutal in how they've quelled dissent.
And is it interesting that all that happened? Wasn't it right at the beginning of COVID, and our press covered almost nothing of it? Right? A formerly free nation really being taken over by its overlords, and those protesting against their government completely shut down, and our press sat silent. But we are really concerned about Canadian truckers.
Well, and I think too, Representative Brammer, there's a timing to your resolution and our legislative session that is also coinciding with China being on the world stage. as normal and accepted,
Yeah.
and on the same platform as all these other countries.
Yeah, as though they are equal.
As though they're
Yeah.
and as though these human rights abuses don't exist.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we went far enough as a country in how we
handled
handled
that. And I would say even,
Yeah.
oh, go ahead.
Oh, I agree. And it's a tough dilemma because you don't want to punish our athletes. You don't want to do something that after they've worked in their entire life to participate in these. I have a good friend that's been on the U.S. ski team. We grew up skiing together, and he's an incredible skier. And I would feel terrible if we weren't able to allow him to compete. But a lot of the way that NBC has covered it, the way that NBC has kind of dealt with China has been, pretty questionable, particularly with what's going on.
We have not watched it in
No.
my family, and for these reasons, absolutely for these reasons. And we like to do, we do like to catch the news of how our athletes are performing and praise that. But the fact that they are being portrayed as a country that is not as dishonorable as
Right.
as they are right now. Okay, so let me ask you this: your resolution focuses a lot on education. That we make sure in Utah, in our educational institutions, that we tell the truth about this country, its history, its events. But there has been some effort over the last many years by the Chinese government to suppress what's taught in our country, in our schools. You emphasize if you're a school which I started a charter school that did offer Chinese and as a world language, and we do bring in culture and history. So does your bill take that in the resolution? Take that into consideration? The Confucius Institutes, we're learning that how much money from China is being infused into our public higher education, with the stipulation that some of the history is sanitized or not taught at all. I mean, tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not just our higher ed institutions; it's also in our high schools and in our dual immersion classes. There are Chinese funds that go into certain school districts to teach those courses. I was contacted by one of the high school instructors, and she said, I can't have you release my name or I'll be fired, but they have told me that I am not allowed to talk about the following things involving China, including these, as part of our curriculum and as part of our current events.
Wow.
And that's pretty concerning that they can dictate the curriculum of current events within the United States to those that are learning about Chinese culture and Chinese history and the Chinese language. And so the bill does call for the honest and forthright teaching of these current events, and it does say particularly for those that are learning the Chinese language and about the Chinese culture.
Well, I have to say that's really interesting, especially at a time when there are those within our own society who are doing everything that they can to ensure that we're teaching something that may not be straight U.S. history, right? Or that focuses an inordinate amount of time and effort and energy on negatives and almost none on the positives. But let's reverse that for China. And we certainly aren't trying to indoctrinate anyone in any way. And I say this as a mother of two boys who speak fluent Chinese because of our immersion program, and a husband who speaks fluent Chinese, right? But but this has been, I have felt increasingly uncomfortable in probably the past 4 or 5 years with that program.
Well, and I know a couple years ago when I was talking about this and going down this road of looking at some of these abuses and looking at, that our medical schools were training doctors from China, things like that. And the whole idea of the Confucius Institute, and people said, no, that's not happening. We don't have Confucius Institute. We don't have the Chinese influence in academia. So did this all happen in the last 3 years? I mean,
it's been building up, but to say that we don't have the Confucius Institute would be false. There is there was a university president that kept a picture of President Xi, so that when the university president would receive visitors, they would put out the picture of President Xi when it suited that purpose, and they were receiving substantial funding from the government of China, and that was a university here in our state.
And was there a picture of President Trump in this same office?
I don't believe so.
Okay, that's fascinating. And is this did you say state-funded institution?
It was a state-funded institution.
So their president, not our president. So, so Representative Brammer, are there efforts to prohibit that kind of academic influence, prohibit that money?
There are. Representative Perucci has been really leading those efforts, and she's done such a good job addressing those and trying to get some transparency. And so it's kind of, from the House side, it's mostly been myself, Representative Hawks, and Representative Perucci, who have been kind of pushing on this, the China issue, and dealing with, or at least raising the awareness of Confucius Institutes and the problems that China is having domestically.
Okay.
So what do you want? What do you want voters to know? But I'd say more importantly, what do you want parents to know when they're looking at where they're sending their kids to school?
Look and see if it's a Taiwan. We've started to replace a lot of the Confucius Institutes with teachers from Taiwan, and they tend to be more what we're looking for without the baggage of all the Confucius Institutes and everything there. So that's one thing that helps. And ask directly, are you receiving funds directly from a foreign government for this program? Because some of the dual immersion programs, some of the universities are receiving funds from foreign governments.
Okay, this is really good to know. I think in recent years there's been an increasing awareness about this issue, and really appreciate your work on this and bringing it to top of mind for people. Thank you for the work you're doing on this and many other issues in the state legislature.
Thank you both so much for having me on.
Yeah,
Alrighty.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Okay, next we have one of our top rock star conservatives in the legislature. I really miss working with Representative Phil Lyman. And, he also has a special distinction of having a little bit of a record, but then was pardoned by a president. Like,
That is true.
like how many... I mean, he's the only person I know that's ever had a presidential pardon.
That is true.
So, because he did some really bad stuff.
Yeah.
And,
those four-wheelers.
got a record.
Those four-wheelers when you have permission. Yeah.
Four-wheelers and you touch some federal land or something like that. Something like that. And
Okay, we're not going to focus on that because he's been pardoned.
I was framed.
Yeah, you were framed. Absolutely, you were framed. I want to be on the next.
Innocent.
I want to be on the next ride along. And so anyway, we have Representative Phil Lyman, consistent conservative.
Yes, absolutely. He can be relied on. And he tells it like it is. So we're going to get some straight talk from Representative Lyman tonight. And we want to talk to you about HB 414. And well, tell us, first of all, where you're from, the areas that you cover. You are way down in the corner of the state. So tell us a little bit about that briefly.
Yeah, so my district is currently District 73. And it's San Juan, Kane, Wayne, Garfield, Paiute, Beaver, and a little bit of Sevier counties.
Some of the most beautiful.
It's changing.
It is. Yeah, it's changing, and I'm losing, sadly, Beaver and Paiute counties, and I'm picking up Grand County and most of Emory County geographically.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Nice.
So I will have 4 of the mighty 5 monuments in my district.
Wow.
Look at that. How do you even travel? I used to travel some of that when I worked for Senator Lee, and
you know the landscape.
Yes, that's quite a span.
Speaking of Senator Lee, sit up a little bit.
Yeah. There should be no question about where any of us are on that. Yeah. So tell us about, and you also have a resolution that would put on the ballot a change to the Utah Constitution. So give us whichever one you want to cover first briefly. I think the change to the Utah Constitution might be quick and easy a little bit more, and then the HB 414 that deals with lobbying conflict of interests.
Okay.
Yeah.
The constitutional amendment adds privacy. So currently, the Utah Constitution, Article 1, Section 1 says that we have a right to life, liberty, and property. And I added privacy to the list. And I added a few other words. It's interesting because I had an attorney in California that was doing a big class action lawsuit with all of the firefighters and public employees on the vaccine mandate.
Can we tell you, Representative? We interviewed him for our last episode, and John Howard, and he brought up he brought up the issue of California having the right to privacy, and we said, hold on, next episode we are actually having a discussion with Representative Phil Lyman on that. Anyway, so go on. I just love that you follow him.
John Wayne Howard. His name is John Wayne Howard, and good friend. And so I said, well, why don't we do that in Utah? And he said, well, because Utah doesn't enshrine privacy in their constitution the way California does. And I thought, so I looked at it and I read California's Article 1, Section 1, and I thought, it sounds better. I like the way they put something. So in addition to just adding privacy, it also adds. So it says all persons. And this is added, are by nature free and independent and have inherent rights to life, liberty, property, and privacy.
Okay, so one of the most, the current application to that, as we've been covering on this podcast, is vaccine status or your healthcare status related to COVID. And so is that something, what might be the practical effect of having privacy recognized as an inalienable right or a state recognized right and something like that?
That is kind of the impetus of it. Although I'm finding, privacy it's a slippery slope. It's a two-edged issue, and privacy, we see all the benefits of it and we value it highly. But for example, Roe v. Wade is based on women's right to privacy.
Yep. Which doesn't exist in the U.S. Constitution, by the way. Anyway.
Yeah. So privacy is a big deal, and all things considered, I think it should be added as a constitutional right. I think it's one of those things that people assumed was inherent and inalienable.
Yeah.
They just didn't bother to list it, which you shouldn't have to if it's inherent and inalienable. But
right, and sometimes it is inherent in First Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment. Right. So a lot of that is kind of inherent, but it's good to actually just carve that out and state it on its own.
Well, I
think it's good.
It seems as though we've moved to a place where it isn't a part of how some people view their fellow man anymore, right? I think we all used to, I think for the most part, people thought that they had their privacy. Like you said, Representative, it is inherent in the document itself, in the formation of our government and our society. And there are those who have no respect for others' rights anymore at all. Right. And so we have to start spelling out some things.
Right.
Now.
Yeah. Very, very true.
Yeah.
And in this day and age with social media and so much information out there, I think it's important. I think it's important that we say we have a right to privacy.
Yeah.
So how does it look?
It's interesting. That one has been sitting completed and in rules for a long time. It's been there for quite a while. And I don't know if there's a hesitancy. I haven't really inquired on that one. I'm assuming it's going to come out. It seems like a simple one, but I haven't gone to committee with that. So
go ahead. What were you going to say?
Just I'm trying to figure out who would not want that bill to move.
I'm sure there are people.
As you know, a lot of times they'll take similar type issues and lump them together, and so it might be that there's some other things that are kind of the same flavor that they're looking at.
Well, we will continue. We'll continue watching that. Tell us about your HB 414.
Okay, so HB 414 just hit a couple of days ago, and it's a conflict of interest bill for lobbyists, and basically says that that a lobbyist can't receive payment from a politician for whom he's also managing their campaign. And this is not directed at any lobbyist, and yet
because that doesn't happen in Utah. I mean, so you're just being super proactive and preventative because you would never have a company that would run an election and then pull your strings once you're in office.
Yeah, that doesn't happen here.
And here's what was driving it for me, and I stumble into these things sometimes kind of innocently and don't realize that I'm treading on some turf. But I've seen the government increasingly run by powerful interests, and a lot of times those are lobbying interests. I've gotten to the point where I tell people when they contact me and say, "Hey, can you help me get this bill through?" I say, "You really need to hire a lobbyist. Yeah. I can do what I can do, but the lobbyists, they work full time on this. They get more deference, I guess, from some of the people that are making the decisions. That's not the way it should be, but that's the way it is. And I'd like to see it change. I'd like to see it go back to each elected representative representing his constituents and having an equal shot at that. But and then also with we've lost the caucus system. The convention is largely been gutted, and now we're getting to a point where all of the financial contributions are flowing into kind of. I don't want to be disparaging at all because I'm not, but they're flowing into leadership, and then leadership decides what issues are important and how that money gets distributed. And as a result, you just get this, to me, a really bloated, kind of top-heavy legislature.
Well, and when you talk about...
I'd like to see a change.
Yeah. When you talk about the changes to the caucus convention system as well, I think, and maybe conflicts with lobbyists, I do think it's interesting to note that, there are people heavily involved in what goes on at the Capitol and what laws pass, who also make an awful lot of money through that signature gathering process.
Right.
And there have been powerful interests wanting to ensure that does not go back to the old system of the people making the decisions. Truly, they've worked hard against that.
The other thing that has kind of cropped up here in the last couple of years, at least that I've been aware of, is some of the lobbying or election management firms that are actually going out and seeking candidates who they can get into office who will push some of the issues that they want to see pushed. And to me, that's just crossing the line. It's like, okay, now not only are you helping clients and politicians get together, you're actually choosing who's going to get into office. You're running their campaigns, and then you lobby with them. And those who are on the outside of that circle look at it and say, if I don't hire these people, if I don't work with them, I'm not going to get anything done. Well, and it's a reality. It's not good.
I have a sage friend who says Utah's never met a conflict it doesn't like. So good luck with this bill. But I had a real example of this. I was working with a senator who was up for re-election in a district that is kind of hard to win. And we had been working long on this issue. And then one day he says he has to back off from it. And I said, why? And he says, because my campaign manager says it messes with the client that he has as a lobbyist, which was he was lobbying for a governmental entity, but told the guy who he's running the campaign, stop working on that bill. I'm telling you that as a campaign manager because it conflicts with my job as a lobbyist. So this is real. And I mean, it really is. And you'll have some large PAC that will say, we want somebody in that seat, Let's go find them, fund them. And then they pull their strings the whole time they're in the seat. And we all know who those groups are.
Yeah. So, I mean, for a lobbyist that is really good at what they do and knows a lot about the industry, they really are invaluable. So I look to to these lobbyists. If we're talking about something, say in the social service realm or handicapped children's realm, there's some fantastic people in there who live their life to help those groups, and you hire them as a lobbyist, or you interface with them as a lobbyist, as a politician, and you really lean on for their expertise. So there's a real important spot for lobbyists. I don't want to see that go away. I just want to keep it clean.
Yeah. And, Representative, I'm now a registered lobbyist, so although I kind of lobby for freedom, I don't think that's the way it generally goes up there on the Hill. But that's what I'm there for. But yeah, most lobbyists, there's some financial interest that someone has in something, which is why they're there. But like you said, there is a level of expertise. They do bring issues to the table. They help you understand what you're navigating in various bills. There absolutely is a role. I think the concern is there anything that you want to share with us more about this bill specifically as we close up?
No, I think that kind of covers it. It's very straightforward. That's in a nutshell. Pretty straightforward. And I'm sure we'll have some people upset.
And of course, before your colleagues vote on it, they'll have to consult with their lobbyist / campaign manager to see how they want them to vote on this bill, since it's an election year, by the way.
I've had some really good discussions the last couple of days with some of the lobbyists, and most of them get it. Sometimes they come off like, hey, do you hate me? What's going on? And then as I talk about it, I say, that's a justifiable point. You make a good point. And same thing with colleagues that I say, well, this is what I see happening overall. And they say, you're not wrong. You make a good point. So whether it turns into
action,
a bill that gets passed, I don't know.
Yeah, they may agree with you in theory, but like acting on that could cost people some money. So
it could, and but the direction we're going, it's not tenable to me. It needs to change.
Good. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, taking the time out of your schedule. And
I do want to show you one more thing, because I just got these today.
Okay.
And I do my Yellow Cake Caucus, and I got my Yellow Cake Caucus
Oh.
today.
Yes.
That's got my logo on it. So
hey,
they're just sitting here, so I thought I have to show you.
You have to show. But here's the thing. Somebody told me that Yellow Cake Caucus combined with Rural Caucus. Is that not true? Do you still hold?
They are not the same.
No, but someone told me this year they started meeting together. I have not come to your Yellow Cake Caucus this year. I mean, you didn't invite me, but
I haven't been invited yet this year either.
I'll invite you. Next Thursday is the last one, and I'll give you a hat if you come. But I'll
next week,
will there be yellow cake?
Today's Thursday, so next Thursday at 7.
Next Thursday at 7 a.m.
Okay, you're going to text me. I know. I had been occasionally in the past.
Yellow Cake usually takes one issue, and that's what we talk about for the whole hour. Rural Caucus runs them through topic by topic, kind of like a committee meeting. So we're different. I didn't mean to take up more time.
No, I was surprised when someone told me that. They said, no, they joined together. So I'm so glad to know not. So we'll come for hats next Thursday.
Okay. It'll be fun.
All right. Great to see you, Representative. Thank you for the work you're doing.
Thanks for the work you're doing. I appreciate both of you very much.
Yep. Have a good night.
All right. Well, that was amazing.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us with Straight Talk with Kim and Carolyn. And we need to thank Fosmu.
You're going to thank me?
Thank Fosmu, who may have to do some creative editing tonight, where we had a couple of passionate moments and a little bit freer
dialogue.
But please follow us on all the places that you find your favorite podcasts. Please like and share. It's very important right now. We're growing. We're starting to see some of those analytics look really good, and so please share with people.
What was that look
Fosmu
gave us? It's like he doesn't agree with our analytics looking good. Anyway. Keep going.
Okay. Like here's how people are starting to stop us in public.
Yes.
So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening, and please like and share and follow us. And you're not going to want to miss any episodes. We've got we have lineups still coming in, and this one was a really good one. So again, subscribe, and thank you for joining us again.
Yes, thank you.
If we are not yet
The
awake
president.
to how corrupt our higher education system is. He should be fired.
Probably a she.
Well, I was going to say, yeah.
It's a she.
Might be she, because I think it's
It's
like
a she.
4